Hi everyone, in this lecture I'm going to show you how to create responsive layouts. Let's just immediately dive into our CSS. So we are going to use the min-max function with the auto-fit value. So when we have auto-fit or auto-fill, it is really important that we specify a width. So what I've done is I've specified the width to be 100%, and it is not a fixed value. It is a relative value here that we have specified. Now, first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say grid template columns. I'm going to use it on the columns. Now, autofit and autofill, they specify the number of columns that we want. Therefore, instead of writing the number of columns, the hard-coded number, we are just going to say autofit, but we need to provide it with some sort of dimension that we want. So what I want is I want the columns to start at 150 pixels of width, not less than this, and I want them to go to 1FR. So 1FR is going to be the maximum size the columns are going to have. And it is not known what 1FR is in this case, in any case. At that specific width, you could say, okay, 1FR is like 500 pixels. But if you change the width of the screen, then 1FR is going to be different. That's why we typically refrain from actually equating 1FR with its pixel value. We just say, okay, this is a fraction of a available space. That's easier to understand than to actually pinpoint the exact value of 1FR. Don't do that, because it's a very, very magical value that is going to help you a lot when creating websites. Please don't try to make too much sense out of it. Just think about it, okay, available space, one fraction of it. As many FRs as you provide, there are those many fractions you're going to end up with, and 1FR is going to be one of those many fractions that you have already ended up with, so if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to save this, and we are going to come here. So depending on the size of our container, it has created those many columns that we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out. I'm sure you can see the text is not important in this case. It doesn't matter what the text says. Just keep in mind how the layout is going to change. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and I'm going to take one of these. Let's dive into compute it, and let's take a look at its width. So the width is 214 pixels. We said we don't want it to go less than 150. So let's try to make it smaller to close to 150. There we go. So it's 67, and now it is 57. Let's go very, very slow so I don't give away the surprise. There we go. That's quite close, I would say. So the width is right here. I'm going to zoom in. Where are you, buddy? There we go. So the width is 150.05. Now, what happens if you go less than this? So we know what's going to happen if you go above than this. It's all the columns that are going to stretch in width, like it doesn't as much as you basically increase the width of the window. And there is no limit to it, because that's when the 1FR has actually taken over the width of the columns. But when you go to less than 150 pixels, that's not the realm of 1FR. That's the realm of the min-max function itself. And the autofit is going to kick in. So if I go less than that, we have actually specified that I do not want my columns to have a width of less than 150 pixels. And if you go below that, you're going to see that another row is actually created. This is an implicit column track. Keep in mind, this is an implicit column track. And it doesn't matter how many items you basically skip to the next line. You're never going to end up with a horizontal scroll bar. So you don't see the scroll bar, even if we go to 236 width of the column. So if you increase it, you can see the number of columns get increased. If you decrease it, the number of columns are going to decrease until you end up with some sort of fluid, responsive layout for your website. This is what is actually happening here. Now, if you want to know how you can style these, how you can provide them with dimensions, we know that by default, implicit tracks are going to be along the row axis. So they're going to be implicit row tracks, technically implicit row tracks. And we have studied the property of grid auto rows. So grid auto row, which is going to provide the height for the implicit row tracks. I'm going to say I want 150 pixels. There we go. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. I'm going to zoom out. There we go. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to go to a larger screen. There we go. So it's 1348. And as I keep making the window smaller, you can see as the width is getting closer to 150, and when it reaches 150, another column is going to pop to the next line. And it's going to basically go to the next line. So now this one, next line, this one, and when we don't have enough space, we are basically going to create another row, another row, another row. There we go. So at the end of the day, we basically end up with this responsive unit that we have 178 pixels. I don't believe any device has this width in pixels, but still we can see that we don't have any horizontal scroll bars. I'm just going to show it to you one more time, and that is going to be, let's set it to 650. Let's set it to 1500. That's my device's width. 90, let's just remove that. Okay, we need that. Let's make it smaller. One row, and then that's not enough. Another row, then that's not enough. Another, until we have all the items fixed in their places. So with this, our lecture comes to an end, and also the entire HTML, CSS lectures comes to an end. That entire lecture, the entire lectures, they do come to an end. But this playlist has a lot to offer, and from our next lecture onwards, we are going to jump into our very first project. I haven't actually created it at this point. I'm actually working on it because I work on this playlist daily, and I upload the videos also daily. But I promise you they're going to be very cool, responsive, multi-page, real-world applications. Real-world websites, not applications. We don't talk about JavaScript in these. And that's it. That's going to be it for all the CSS that we're going to cover. We have already finished HTML, and this is going to be the end of the CSS section of this tutorial series. Then you're going to have 3 websites which are going to help you and going to teach you how to create amazing real-world websites. And basically, stay tuned. That's it. See you in the next lecture.